everyone, welcome back. Today we are doing a matte look. Now that's not normally my thing, I'm normally all about like the dewy, but I have textural issues right now and matte is just a much better way of hiding texture than dewy looks are. So today we're doing like a full matte look, just a few tips and tricks for hiding texture and creating a look that still has dimension, so you know it's matte but not flat, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, let's just jump straight in. Now that you can see my bare skin, you can probably see I've got some stuff going on, and basically I had an allergic reaction. Very unfortunate, but it happens. This is actually something called photoallergic contact dermatitis, which is a bit of a long name. Basically means I put a product on my skin and then I went in the sun, and the combination of the UV light and whatever I was allergic to in the thing I put on my skin just like combined and resulted in this big reaction. And then I had all these like tiny bumps, like little blisters, like all over my face, and the doctor said it's going to take a couple of weeks to clear up. But I'm now in a place where it's kind of calmed down enough that I can safely put makeup on it, because at first, you know, I basically just had to put a thick layer of cream over everything and no makeup or anything like that. But now it's kind of looking, you know, you can see my neck is red. You can see I still have some redness here. I have bumps over my cheeks, but they're skin coloured, so they don't look as obvious. But if I was to whack a ton of highlight on there, you would be able to see the bumpiness. So I don't usually do matte looks because I have dry skin, but today it is a perfect time to do matte makeup, because when you have like texture on your skin, whether that's an allergic reaction like me, whether that's acne, which I used to deal with, whether that's scarring, then a matte surface means the eye doesn't as easily pick up those variations on the skin surface, because the skin being matte is not reflecting as much light back at you. When it's dewy, when it's got highlighter on it, more light is reflecting off the surface, and when that's a bumpy surface like this, the light is hitting and it's going off in all different directions because you've got so many different angles going on here, and that just makes your eye pick up that bumpy surface so much more. So if you have texture, matte is the way to go. Obviously I have dry skin, so I have bothering my eye, so I have put a good base of moisturizer on because I want the look to be matte, but I don't want it to pick up dry skin. I do have a few patches of dry skin because I haven't been able to put any exfoliant type stuff on me because of the rash, but we will deal with that as we go. So I'm going to start with a mattifying moisturizer. This sort of primes and mattifies the skin. This is from a brand called Ryor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've been using this stuff for so long and I still don't know if I'm saying it correctly. This is really good for controlling oil. If you're someone who has some oil through the T-zone of the face, but it's not a ton of oil, this will control the oil well enough all by itself without any other kind of primer on top of it. Because I'm going to be putting makeup down my neck here where I have all this rash, I am putting primer everywhere. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of Putty primer from e.l.f. just to fill in the pores. Now, again, that's not normally an issue that's a big deal for me, but with the extra texture I have going on at the moment, I thought I would use a little bit of this. So I'm going to use a really small amount because I don't want it to look chunky on my face. I'm going to warm it up in my fingers and then just press it in here and on the chin. And it does say on the packaging of this to let it sit for a minute before you carry on with your makeup, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, first step, this isn't texture so much as redness. I am going to colour correct. This is a green concealer from Kiko Milano, and I'm going to apply this mostly on my neck because that is where I have most of the redness issue, mostly because this is super itchy and I scratch it in my sleep when I have no conscious control over what I'm doing. Obviously I look a little bit crazy right now, but I am going to put foundation over this. I'm also going to put just a little bit on my face where I have some redness around the cheekbone area, the chin, and just around the nose. This brush, by the way, is from Eco Tools. They make nice brushes, Eco Tools. I really like their eyeshadow brushes. Now that I'm looking like a crazy person, I can move on to foundation. Now I'm going to use a foundation that, again, I don't use very often because it is matte. This is the No. 7 Beautifully Matte Light Foundation, and this is the shade Calico. You could use a brush if you wanted fuller coverage, but because I have dry skin, I am going to stick with the sponge just because it adds a tiny bit of moisture and it enables it to blend better on the drier surface that is my skin. Now, this is a nice matte foundation. Like, I'm not usually into matte foundations, but this light matte one from No. 7 has that slightly moussey whip texture, but it's not super over the top. It's not super cakey and heavy. It blends very nicely. I will say this shade is, or at least it was when I purchased it, the lightest shade in the range, and it's not what I would consider that light. Like, I have other foundations from No. 7, and all of the foundations I have are in the same shade, Calico, but they're not actually the same shade. It depends on the formula of the foundation, which is a bit weird. So some are a bit lighter than others. I'll show you the one I've got, which is definitely lighter. This essentially natural foundation is also in the shade Calico, but it comes off lighter than this matte one. Now, as I was saying, when you have a matte surface, it's less reflective, so less light bounces off it. And that means that you're less likely to perceive the bumps, the texture, etc. But when you're matte, it's basically the same principle. Less light is bouncing off all the different angles of surfaces that are on your face. And whilst that's good for covering up texture, it also means that you can get a bit of a flat look because you're not seeing that reflection off the cheekbone as you shift your head. And so that's where contouring really comes in with a matte look. You know, people say like matte but not flat. That is what they're talking about. Because you're reflecting less light off your face, because it's a matte surface, you get a bit of a flat look. And so you have to add dimension in other ways, and that you can do with contour. Now that we used quite a lot of foundation to cover the entire neck, I'm moving on to concealer. Now, because I can't use a dewy or metallic type of highlight because of texture, what I'm going to use to make sure that my face still has that dimension and doesn't look flat is a matte highlight. So I'm going to use a few different concealers for under the eyes and then for highlighting the face. So I have this one from Clinique. This is the Beyond Perfecting Concealer, and this is Very Fair 02. So I'm going to put a little bit of this on the cheekbones, the nose, the chin, the brow, just to basically where I would normally put a dewy highlight, to add that same dimension but in a matte way. For under the eyes, I'm going to use the famous Tarte Shape Tape, which is good and full coverage and also is matte, so it won't highlight the bumps I have on my under eyes. Now we can talk about adding some dimension so we have that matte but not flat look. And I'm going to use some cream contour. So I have this NYX Duo, so I'm going to use the dark end. And I also have a concealer from the Saem in the shade Contour. If you think about where the light would hit on your face and where it wouldn't, imagine the light's coming straight here at my face. This surface here on my forehead is flat. The light's going to bounce straight back at you. As you get around the top here, the forehead starts to curve away, and that means that the light, when it hits it, is going to not bounce straight back but bounce off at an angle, and less of it is going to come back and reach your eye. And so that is why the edges of the face need to be a little bit darker. Even if you don't have a forehead that you want to make smaller, make the periphery of the face just that little bit darker. Going to add our contour. Try and make it even. That's the hardest bit. Just making that look the same. I take the bottom part of my sponge because it's clean and then smudge that back into the hairline. Take the pointier end, blend that inwards. You want to make sure all of your shading is connected. So I'm going to put a little bit here in the hairline and blend this around the edge of the face so that the contour higher up is connected all the way around the edge of the face into our cheekbone contour. Put a little bit on the nose. Now I don't really contour my nose because my nose is a little bit pointy already and I don't want to emphasize its pointiness, but I'm going to add just a tiny bit of contour so that we have that bit of dimension going on. When your face is dewier and the light is reflecting more off your face, your eye just more naturally picks up the different planes of the face, the different angles, and so a contour is less necessary. When you're having a contour, you're tricking the eye into seeing that reflection of light here is different from the reflection of light down here, if that makes sense. It's tricking the eye because everything that we see is just what light is reaching our eyes, right? So whether we perceive something as darker or lighter versus shaded or not shaded is basically kind of very, very similar. So what we're doing here is we're making it a darker colour versus a lighter colour and tricking the eye into perceiving it as shaded and not shaded. Again, I'm connecting this up. You want all your shadows to be connected. And finally, the eyelids, I'm just going to do with my finger. Connect that shadow in and then just pull it up. And we are going to put eyeshadow on, but I just want to do this to show you how you can do it with a contour. Add that depth in to the brow. So obviously for matteness and longevity, we want to powder the whole face here and the neck and the collarbone. So I'm going to use my favourite Gosh Prime and Set, 2 brushes, one for under the eyes and one for everywhere else, and I will be back with the powdered face. I just want to show you before I powder the other half of my face. This is the powdered half, this is the non-powdered half, and you can see how much difference that matteness makes to this really bumpy cheekbone area that I have going on. Like this, from a distance, looks so much smoother than this side. Obviously up close, you're still going to be able to see the bumps. We can't make them disappear. But from a distance, in photographs, on film, this is going to look so much better. So, now that we have our matte base all, I'm going to add a little bit more dimension with some powder contour, bronzer and blush. So I'm going to start with bronzer. And I'm going to continue with matte products. This is Back to Bronze by L'Oreal. Go back over that contour, bring it down a little bit. Add some to the cheekbones. Just look a little bit sun-kissed by getting some bronzer onto the tops of the cheekbones. Just blend into the hairline as well. Some for the nose, and the chin, and on the neck. For contour, I'm taking the Kevyn Aucoin Sculpting Powder in Light. This is very cool toned. And another little small brush to just add a little bit more under this cheekbone. I'm not a fan of very intense contour. I want it to look natural and like a shadow, not like a strip of bronzer on your face. Colour, matte blush. This is Blush Crush from Lottie London. I don't want to disturb any of the makeup I have on already, so I'm taking a big fluffy brush and stamping rather than swiping. I'm going to take a little bit across the nose for a slightly more natural sun-kissed look, and up onto the brow for the same reason. Like if you've watched my videos before, you know I put blush basically everywhere. But that's because I want to look more naturally sun-kissed than just rosy cheeked. More blush? A little bit more. Just a little bit. Okay, like I said at the beginning, no highlight on anywhere where there is texture, because it is just gonna go. It is just, that sentence came out in the wrong order. It's gonna make it look just like pew 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 texture on your face. But I am gonna put the tiniest little bit of highlight where I do not have texture, just because I do like highlight and I want a tiny bit of it. So I'm going to take a smaller brush than usual because I don't want it to go on places where I don't want it, because I don't want any texture highlighted. And instead of taking a boom boom highlight, I'm actually just going to take the Ambient Lighting Dim Light, which is more of a illuminating powder than a highlight powder, if you know what I mean. It's a lot more subtle. So I'm just going to take my little fluffy eyeshadow brush and I'm going to put a little bit of highlight just here above the brow, because this is where I don't have any texture because I was wearing a hat, and like I said, my reaction to this product was triggered by UV light. So even though I had obviously the chemicals in the product were on my forehead, they then weren't exposed to UV light, so it turned out okay. So most of my forehead is fine, which means I do have a little area where I can put a little bit of glow. And I'm going to put a little bit on the nose, because my nose doesn't have many bumps on it. Same with my upper lip. My upper lip is fine. And that way I've brought a tiny bit of glow to the face, but I've not highlighted any bumps. Okay, so brows, eye makeup, etc. Because I have bumps basically everywhere, like around my eyes here, I'm also going to just do a really simple matte eye look. I'm going to wax some brows on, and then I'm going to bring some shine to the face by doing a glossy lip. I am going to put a little bit of setting spray on in a minute, so before I put any like gel in my brows or any mascara on, I am going to do my setting spray. But first of all, I'm going to do my lip, and here is where we're going to bring in a little bit of shine. First of all, I am going to line, this is the Gosh lip liner in the shade Raisin. I've completely covered the lip with that, and now I'm going to go in with some gloss on top. This is from Kiko Milano. This is Super Gloss. What shade is this? 106. So our lip is really the focus of this look. It's bold, it's shiny, it's a little bit dark, it's a little bit dramatic. It's got a little bit of a sort of pink reflect going on from the gloss. So hopefully we're going to attract a lot of attention here and not to the various bumpiness that people might still be able to detect if they look hard enough. Time to add some setting spray. Now for this look I would recommend a matte setting spray, something that's going to take down the powdery effect but not add shine to the skin. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a matte setting spray because I don't usually deal with texture these days, so I'm going to have to use the NYX dewy setting spray because I don't have a matte one. It's actually in the Rimmel Instafix and Go bottle because this has a better spritz in my opinion than the NYX bottle, but it is the NYX dewy setting spray. Fan myself down. Hopefully this won't add too much of a glow, but I did feel my skin felt a tiny bit dry from all the powder and my just general dry skin type, so I wanted to add a little bit of something. If you add some setting spray, once it's dried down, if there's any bits that you feel the setting spray has made too like highlighted or whatever, you can always take a tiny bit more powder. Sometimes just the powder left over on your brush is enough, you don't need to get any more product, and you can always just add a little bit of powder back. if you want to. I'm going to use some boy brow to get these looking a bit more feathery. Do you like a feathery brow? One that looks like actual hair is there rather than just a drawn in line, which my brows can sometimes look like because I just don't have a lot of hair there, you know. I'm gonna wax some mascara on and then I will be back to take my hair down. Does anyone else not wear makeup for like a couple of weeks and then suddenly find themselves really shit at mascara again? Literally just got a ton of mascara on my under eyes. Told ya, couple of weeks and don't know what I'm doing with mascara, and if my face looks weird it's because I'm trying not to touch my lower lashes to my face again and get even more dots down there. Oh, right, flicked those bits of mascara off with my spoolie and I'm ready to finish off. And here we are, all done. I think it's good to just take a second and look in the mirror and evaluate what's going on. I had a hairband on, so my bronzer is not as blended into my hairline as it could be. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of that and get it in the hair as much as I can so that I have less of a dividing line up here. Okie dokie. Okay, hair everywhere. I might literally lose my train of thought, like completely. I'm so tired, guys, just so tired. But yeah, stick to a matte highlight to create dimension without creating shine, and you will hide any texture much better. You can also create a sort of more shiny focal point, like a shiny lip, to draw attention. Or you could do the same with the eyes, create a bold eye. Like, I didn't want to put any glittery stuff on my eyes because I actually have bumps around my eyes from this allergic reaction. But if you wanted, you could also put the focal point, boom, up here, some lashes, some glitter, and get all the attention going on up here. And in that way, just do a little distraction, focus the eyes somewhere else. Okay, I hope you're all happy and healthy and having a lovely, lovely day. Please check out some of my other videos and yeah, maybe subscribe if you want to. Bye guys.